everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sharon Mashan. I'm a local investor and property manager in the area, and I recently went to the Landlord and Letting Show in Manchester. Just out of interest, has anyone heard of it? Did anybody go? Fabulous. Okay, good. So a few people know a little bit about what I'm talking about. Okay. So, as I say, I went to the Manchester show. I'll just give you a hand. There's already been events in London and Liverpool, and the Manchester show was a couple of weeks ago. It was held at Event City, which is near the Trafford Centre, for those of you that know the area, which I was quite relieved about, because when I first heard it was in Manchester, my heart sank. I had visions of sitting in traffic for hours, paying for parking, you know what it's like. Anyway, Event City is only 20 minutes away from my home. There was no traffic and there's free parking, so we're on to a good start there. So this is an annual event held at various venues across the country, and there are still events going on at Leeds, Cardiff and Coventry. I think the Coventry's one is like November sometime, so they're spread throughout the year. So there's opportunities to go if you missed one. Now, one thing I do like about this show in particular, and there are other shows available hosted by other people, is that this show is free to go to. All you have to do is register online or register when you turn up at the event. So that's all a bonus. For those of you that haven't been to such events before, let me explain a little bit about the format. And I've took some photographs as well to share with you all as well this evening. I'd say it's a little bit like a trade show, but actually it's a trade show. So businesses have a stand where they can promote their business. And examples of attendees at this show included the RLA, which is a Residential Landlords Association, for those of you who don't know that organisation, the DPS, the Deposit Protection Service, so one of the 3 government-approved deposit schemes. There was Aaron Boswell Insurance had a stand there, as did various estate and letting agents everywhere you turn. There was another agent. Suppliers of temperature-controlled systems for HMOs, so those of you who have HMOs or looking to go into that, that's another new technology that's worth looking into. Suppliers of ventilation systems, furniture suppliers, the list goes on. Now, you're free to wander around the stands, take your time, go in any order that you like, and you can speak to the suppliers on the stands, which I really like. Now, in my view, the show could have had a few more exhibitors. When I turned up, it was quite small. You could go around the stands in probably less than an hour, I would say, and that was like slowly. And also, I think a few more visitors would have really helped the atmosphere. So you can see from the photos, I took these in mid-afternoon when you'd expect the show to be at its busiest. And you can see there's a distinct lack of people there. On the upside, however, the lack of visitors was to our benefit. So we had excellent opportunities to speak to the suppliers face to face. And we could have in-depth conversations that you couldn't have if it's very busy, or if you just phone them up out of the blue. You know, if you just ring the supplier and say, can we have a chat? You're likely to get short shrift. But at a trade show, they're here to sell, so they want to speak to you. And also, on the day, suppliers often have discounts available to people only at the show. So, for example, the RLA had a half-price membership offer that day. Now, the event was worthwhile for us at Foxdog Properties for 2 key reasons. So, first of all, we were able to see in detail a whole-of-house positive pressure system. Now, for those of you that don't know, this is the way forward in terms of treating condensation problems with tenants. And we've had several of these fitted in our properties, but I've never actually seen the part of the system that sits in the loft. So on the picture, you can basically see the filters and the pipework sits in the loft. So all you can see in the house is this white panel on the landing. So we've seen lots of white panels, but not actually the system. So because we were literally the only people on the stand, I grilled the supplier for ages. Like, what about this? Show me this, and what's the spec on this? And so much so that we now have the confidence to offer this service, the installation of this, to our landlords. And this is a relationship that we've developed that we wouldn't otherwise have had the opportunity to create. So from that point of view, it was a really positive day. The other money-saving tip that we came across that day was TradePoint. You might recognise this as a B&Q brand. Now, we already have a TradePoint card, and to be honest, it's a bit useless. Whenever we go to B&Q, there's hardly ever any discounts on, and sometimes you think, why am I bothering? However, at the show, they're promoting a new landlord trade point card. Now, this is great, so we're now applying for one. Now, it only covers approximately 400 products, and I get the impression it's mostly homeware. But the example they had at the show was a light fitting, which was like nearly 60% discount off retail prices. So I think it's definitely worth looking into. So again, that's another tip for me to you. If you haven't got a landlord account at TradePoint, I'd definitely investigate getting one. Now the show is open to the public for 7 hours, from noon until 7 o'clock. And this is to allow people working during the day to attend. And I feel at these events, the presentations are given by guest speakers. So there's a programme of presentations, and when you sign up, you get a list of programmes, and when you get there, you get a schedule as you're walking around. You can choose which presentation to go to. And I think these are particularly valuable. What I would say, though, is that the last presentation started at like 5:30, 5:45, which sort of, from my view, defeats the object of the late opening times. If you're going later, then surely you want to see a guest speaker later. But anyway, there is a full programme, and we went to pretty much all of them, most of them. Now, each programme lasts around 30 to 45 minutes. There's a 10-15 minute slot between for people to mill around, get seated, swap lecture theatres, that sort of thing. Now, there were 2 seminar studios for the presentations, but unfortunately they were all open plan on the trade floor, so the acoustics were pretty poor, to be honest. But that didn't detract from the content of the information that we got. The schedule was very varied, so we learned about right to rent, buy to let mortgages. There was lots of talks around the summary of the tax changes that we here have been learning about over the past few months, how to approach dispute resolution of deposits, and advice on how to let your property more quickly. Now, there was a panel discussion by the RLA later in the afternoon, supposedly about the Northern Powerhouse and the impact of that on North West housing. But to be honest, from what I heard of it, they didn't really talk about the Northern Powerhouse, and there was very little audience interaction. So again, I was a little disappointed on that front. However, the presentation I enjoyed most and got the most from was from Arshie Lahi. Now, I don't know, Alison will talk about YPM magazine later, but if you get this, Arshie's a regular contributor. He usually has some sort of monthly article. So it was really good to meet him face to face. And as I say, there were so few people in the audience, you could actually have a conversation and a really good interaction with him. So his talk was about short, medium and long-term goals in the property business, and having the end in mind, starting with the end in mind. For example, Arsh knows exactly the exact day when his property portfolio is going to be mortgage-free. That's his end goal. So he's using strategies like sourcing and lease options in the short and medium term to generate enough money to contribute to paying down his mortgages. Now, at the start of this year, at this meeting, Alison talked about the very same thing, about setting your goals for the year ahead. So I felt this presentation by Arsh was a really good reminder for me about that, as well as planning long term. So, there we go, there's Arsh for those of you who don't recognise him. Okay, so I hope you found my quick review of the show useful. If you haven't been to a landlord show, I do recommend it. It doesn't have to be this one that I've reviewed. But I think as professional landlords, it's up to us to be in keeping up to date with the latest issues out there, as well as the latest products and services and technology that can help keep our businesses profitable. And to be honest, they're not always the most exciting of places to spend your afternoon. But even if you only make one contact like we did, or learn one new thing like we did about the B&Q cards to save you money, then it's definitely worthwhile. So I do recommend it. Thank you.